What's going on, guys? Danny here from Metal Couch, and today we're going to be talking about John Carpenter. More importantly, John Carpenter's music. John Carpenter, for those of you who do not know, is an American horror film director. He's directed things such as the original Halloween film, Assault on Precinct 13, Escape from New York, and various other movies that I could go into and discuss and just gloat over for hours on end. More importantly, John Carpenter recently put out an album titled Lost Themes, which immediately caught my attention because John Carpenter's work in his own films, sometimes in collaboration with Alan Howarth, are really iconic pieces of music for their soundtracks. Like, listen to the soundtrack to Halloween 3, or Escape from New York, or even Assault on Precinct 13, and those soundtracks for those kind of movies, those soundtrack styles kind of defined the 80s, whether you were into horror or action. Even the soundtrack to Big Trouble in Little China is definitely a perfect example of, like, hey, here's an action movie type of soundtrack. So, Lost Themes caught my attention because I'm a huge fan of these type of soundtracks. John Carpenter, he used to be a master of horror. He hasn't really done anything of worth in the past decade or so, but these movies are still today some of the best horror films I've ever seen. So Lost Themes, going through immediately, we have Vortex. Vortex, to me, even though none of these tracks were intended to be used for a movie, it's all original content by Carpenter, his son, and his godson, immediately made me think of films such as Prince of Darkness, or even little bits and pieces of Halloween 3, but more, like, I could easily see this track being used in Prince of Darkness, and I kind of wish it was, because Prince of Darkness is an excellent movie, and Vortex definitely fits in that vein. For those of you who are wondering, like, what kind of album you're getting into, this is a perfect track to listen to kind of get a great definition of what this album's going to be like. It's mostly synthesizers, and there are no vocal tracks. It's all film score without it being the score for a film. And I think Vortex is one of those tracks on this album that help define what style John Carpenter has, overall theme of this album, save for about one track. And then we get Obsidian, which is kind of boring at first. Not coming off the heels of Vortex, Obsidian was not really... It didn't really have much in the beginning. It picks up about halfway through. Rather mediocre at first, but redeems itself towards the end. And Fallen is all around a track which is Carpenter doing Dread. And that's something that Carpenter was very good at back in the day. And to me, it's something that I could easily see in maybe Assault on Precinct 13, or maybe some tense moments in Escape from New York. So I really enjoyed Fallen. Fallen was a good track. Domain and Mystery. This is where a red light immediately went off in my head when it came to this album. Domain and Mystery, to me, are really bloated. There's a lot going on, which is not Carpenter at all. Carpenter was always about simplicity with his music and his film scores, and I feel like these just have too much going on. Again, it's bloated, and I didn't really enjoy these two. And then we have Abyss. Abyss, as the title implies, again, another dreadful sounding track. Rather good. Really, really recommend that one along with Vortex. And then we have Wraith and Purgatory. Wraith being an amazing track, Purgatory being an I don't know what's going on here track. Again, it's bloated. I don't really understand why Carpenter decided to go this way, but moving on. Night. Night closes out the album and is a great album closer. Night, to me, also, along with Vortex, encompasses everything that you would find in Carpenter's film scores from back in the day. This album is a very hard album to look at from a perspective of production or styling because it's all so artificial, and that's the point. John Carpenter's never been about using organic sounds in his music because machines have no soul, and much like some of the horror creatures that are present within his films, they also don't have a soul. And I think that fits perfectly with this album. I mean, granted, it's bloated in a few places, and the deluxe edition has some remixes which, in my opinion, are just not good. I do not recommend listening to the deluxe edition bonus tracks. They're not. I wouldn't bother with those. There are a few tracks here and there that are of redeeming quality, and also some bloated stuff. Production-wise, as I said before, it's all artificial. It's take what you can get from it. It's electronic music. You're not going to get... I can't comment on drums sounding organic or not when I know that the drums are fake, or that the guitar samplings are actually real, but they're so down-tuned in the mix that it's like... It is what it is. It's electronic synthesizer music for film scores. And I get what John Carpenter's message is. In regards to this album, reading an interview that he put out about it, he's hoping that this album kind of inspires filmmakers and film composers to kind of bring back that style that was found in the 70s and 80s. And frankly, I have to agree with him. Some of the best film soundtracks ever came out in the 80s. And he's partially responsible for my opinion on that. All in all, I give Lost Themes a 7 out of 10. There are a few tracks here and there that are bloated. None of them are necessarily horrible to the point where you want to turn this album off, but it was a very interesting listen. And I wonder if Carpenter would put out another album like this sometime in the future. The man's 67 years old and chain-smoking, so I hope that his health never declines anytime soon. And you know what? I just want to see another John Carpenter horror film that's not The Ward or Ghosts of Mars. I mean, I'm sure there are some guys out there who are going to watch this and agree with me on that. After all, he is supposed to be the executive producer on Escape from New York. But that's beside the point. Lost Themes, it's a 7 out of 10. You guys should definitely check this out if you're a fan of John Carpenter's film scores, or just film score in general. I think you guys would enjoy the majority of it. So 7 out of 10 for me. Danny here from Metal Couch, signing out.